Eagles. Eagles.
Welcome in, everybody, to a Tuesday edition of Birds 365 here on JAKIB Sports. I'm your host, Zander Krause. That's Johnny Mack, John McMullen, the number one Eagles beat reporter in town. Johnny Mack, the divisional stage is set. Eagles versus Rams, Sunday, 3 p.m. Eastern. How you feeling on this Tuesday morning, Johnny Mack?
Better than Sam Darnold.
Yeah, man. Pumpkin Darnold.
All-time stinker. No way you can spin that one. So disappointing end to his season. He had a very good season. I think everybody's going to jump on that. But, you can't explain that from a football perspective. You got to get a psychiatrist to explain what went on last night with Sam Darnold. I'll tell you what, though, he lost a lot of money, because people get emotional in those types of situations. They're going to forget about all the good stuff and just remember that. And it's the way of the NFL, man. But that's one of the worst. I know the 33rd team, that is one of the worst playoff performances of all time. And they tweeted out EPA, which is expected points per play. In the first half of that game, he ranked 563rd out of 563 quarterbacks over the past 20 years. 563 of 563. When I talk about all-time stinker, I mean all-time stinker. One of the worst quarterback performances. So I know there's going to be a bunch of Eagles fans worried about the way the Rams played. The Rams did this, and the Rams played well. I'm not trying to take that away. That was an abysmal performance by a quarterback who's had a great season. That's why I said you can't even explain. I was talking about Jalen Hurts' ability to, if he doesn't have his best stuff, to make plays. Right. I point to it again last night. He didn't have it. He didn't have it to the point of, it's like, what the hell is going on?
To the point of 536 out of 536. That's how bad he didn't.
563 out of 563.
Sorry.
Yeah. So I give ESPN credit for this one. Where is it? I'm trying to track it down. He took 9 sacks, which is tied a postseason record. And the Vikings' interior offensive line is an embarrassment, but the quarterback is responsible for most of it. But if you think, he held the ball an average of 4.73 seconds per play on those sacks. 4.73. I ripped Jalen Hurts for 3.1. 4.73. And anybody, for all those fearful Eagles fans, if they're out there, you really think the Eagles' offensive line is letting a 4-man rush sniff Jalen Hurts? In many ways, I think the Eagles would have destroyed either of those teams.
Yep, I agree.
But this is a gift in the divisional round for the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah, you just kind of went there already. That 4-man rush ain't getting home against this offensive line. But just early preview on the game, man. Eagles-Rams, it's set now. You just said it. It's a gift, I think, to the Philadelphia Eagles to play this team. I just do not think the Rams match up with the Birds well from their defense.
Oh, you already saw it.
Yeah.
You already saw it. 255 yards. In a historic season, that was Saquon Barkley's most historic game.
Yeah, best game.
The Rams, don't get me wrong, they have good young players on the defensive front, but they're all undersized, and they're all going to get pushed around. You talk about bully ball. This is a bully ball game for the Eagles. I mean, they are just going to push those guys around, that massive offensive line. And that's what they did in the first game. And and that game was in Los Angeles. This game's going to be, I haven't looked at the weather yet, but I'm sure it's going to be near freezing.
I saw
Yeah,
somebody put out that there's a rain on the forecast, but I don't want to jump all over it. Remember last week before the wild card game, it was showing big snow on Monday.
yeah.
So
I mean, it changes so quickly, but early on, 39 the high. It's actually snow now, a little bit of snow. 26 the low. So, not a bad day for Philadelphia in January, but it's a bad day for the Los Angeles Rams. In, anytime you get a dome team, a fair weather team coming to Philadelphia in January, it's a big advantage. And then just the styles make fights, and they can beat up on a poor interior offensive line. They're not going to see a poor interior offensive line in Philadelphia.
No, and they got home with 4, like you said last night. They're just not going to do that in Philly. So I will say, John, I think the one concern, not the concern, but the one obviously team, part of the Rams that you can't go to sleep on is the combination of Sean McVay and Matthew Stafford. Matthew Stafford obviously is still an elite thrower of the football. He fits that ball in tight windows. I saw a stat that came out last night about him against the blitz. Now, I don't think we're going to blitz, but just to show you how good Stafford is. Highest passer rating versus the blitz amongst all QBs with 5+ playoff games this century, 139.2. So it's
he's great.
Yeah,
I mean,
he's a good player.
Great.
I don't want to underestimate. Look, I think it's a great matchup for the Eagles, but I don't want to underestimate anybody at this point. It's any given Sunday. That team is getting hot.
No, I mean, yeah.
And John, the one other thing is they're more healthy right now than they were when they played us earlier in the year.
Yeah, their offensive line is their offensive line is back. They're a good team. I don't want to dismiss them if the Eagles play poorly. It's the NFL. They can get upset, but just from a style matchup, and again, we've talked about Jalen Hurts not performing up to expectations. I mean, he's never been that bad that you saw last night. I mean, that, like I said, that was historic bad. So, the Rams played well against historic bad, and that kind of turns into that. But you'll hear Darius Slay has tremendous respect for Matthew Stafford, tremendous respect. Yeah. AJ Brown, tremendous respect for Matthew Stafford. He is a very good quarterback, potential Hall of Fame quarterback. If he wins another one, if they make this run, he will be a Hall of Fame quarterback. Great player. I don't want to. They have a bunch of good players. I don't want to state it like that, but when you look at the styles and the matchups on paper, it looks very, very favorable for the Eagles.
Yep, no doubt about it. And if you go back to that other game or the previous game that we played the Rams, John, my camera's glitching out. Let me fix that up real quick. We were down Smith and Mailata in that game, weren't we, John?
Oh boy, you caught me off guard. I haven't even thought about that.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly. I thought I remember though us being down a couple of players in that game, and I think that might have been the game that Mailata missed. I'm pretty sure we were at the Devontae.
Well, he missed 4 games. So
yeah, that's what I mean. I think one of them was the Rams. I don't have it off the top of my head either, but I just was thinking back, and I'm like, I know we weren't fully healthy in that game either. So potentially, Eagles will be more healthy going into the game as well. That defensive line, John, on the Rams, let's talk about it a little bit here. They're small. They're good, and they're good in the pass rush, but, I mean, what are they going to do? Is Saquon going to have 255 again? I mean, it's obviously crazy.
Well, no, I'm going under 255, and I think because of that first game, they'll over sort of correct, which will probably hurt them even more. I think they'll come in just, because of and everybody should, to be honest, because of the way the Eagles are playing. Their first goal should be to stop Saquon Barkley.
By the way, we did have Mailata in that game. That was the game he got bull rushed. Remember? Was that Jared Verse?
Yeah, Jared Verse. Yeah. People, you got to stop with the one clip stuff, everybody.
Yeah, but John, that was still a clip you don't see often from Jordan Mailata. Whether he was off balance or not, he got freaking creamed by.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. You got to stop. You got to stop with that stuff. he's been the best left tackle in football, and people will put
I'm
up
not
one
taking away
clip.
from that. I'm just,
Well,
calling
no,
it.
I'm just saying, but people make such a big deal. It's not just that; it's every week. Like you told me about, I did see the Orlovsky thing about. I'm like, what Dan is turned into a total grifter. I'm very disappointed in Dan. I'm very disappointed in Dan, to the point you had Ryan Fitzpatrick and Chase Daniel jumping in and saying, "What are you talking about, dude? This is the NFL. Guys are open.
Yeah,
The ball comes out on time. What the hell are you talking about?" So people take
Orlovsky's
this.
looking for Pac-12, Pac-12 windows here, Johnny
Yeah,
man.
he's looking for Oklahoma, Alabama windows.
Yeah,
I'm like, what are you doing? People have to stop with that. And the one clip scouting. But I sorry, I got off because you brought up Mailata. I mean, Mailata's had such a great year, and people are talking about. Yeah, show the other 30 plays where he fucking dominated the guy, where he will this week as well. Yeah, I that drives me crazy. So I apologize for going on a tangent, but yeah, I mean, I'm not worried about Jared Verse against Jordan Mailata. Let's put it that way. To be kind. That's a big advantage for the Eagles. And that's a very good rookie. It's going to be defensive rookie of the year. Sorry, Eagles fans. It is going to be Jared Verse. And he deserves it. And I'm not trying to say he's a bad player, because he's a good player, and he might even be a great player down the road. But that is a huge advantage for the Eagles in this game, matchup versus matchup. So sorry to go on that tangent, but
no, it's a good tangent. I think it's a good, favorable matchup here for the Birds in round number 2, John. Divisional matchup again. I don't want to jump too far ahead, but we've been saying on this show since what, week 7, week 8, week 9, that the Eagles and the Lions are on a collision course in the NFC. Well, I have a feeling, John, that's how it's going to be. Again, I'm not going to sleep yet. We got a game to play this weekend. We got to get by the Rams. Lions got to get by the Commanders, but oh man, does it feel like that collision course will come to a head, Johnny Mac?
Yeah, Eagles fans got to be big Commanders fans as well, because that would be the perfect scenario.
Oh gosh, rookie quarterback coming to Philly for the NFC title game. That would be
that would be the perfect scenario. But yeah, we're getting ahead of ourselves. But look, I think either matchup would have been good for the Eagles. But I'm not, faltering because the Rams played so well. I mean, this is a really good matchup for the Eagles.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
Yeah, and I don't think that changed at all.
No doubt, John. I want to get into a little bit of Nakobe Dean. All right, we didn't talk. We talked a little bit about it yesterday, but I want to just dedicate some time here to this segment. We learned that Nakobe Dean is done for the year. Obviously, what was it, John? He tore his patellar tendon.
Patellar tendon, yeah, which is even worse, to be honest.
Yeah, so not good for Nakobe Dean. I got to say, from a personal note, that stinks. I hate injuries are obviously a part of the game, but to see a player who is in year 3 really emerge as a talent, that sucks to go down like that at the end of the year, potentially put the start of his 2025 season in jeopardy. So a brutal injury for Nakobe Dean. He will be done for the year. Warren Burks will be the guy stepping up, but how big of an impact is that, John? I mean, you're in the meat of your playoff push here. You're in the middle of it here, trying to win the 3 biggest games of your season, obviously, to raise the crown, and you lose a guy who's been a pretty integral part of your defense. How do you see this, John, impacting the Eagles' defense overall?
Yeah, I think it could be a big impact down the road, specifically if you want to look at that potential matchup with Detroit, with Gibbs especially. Not that Nakobe could deal with him in pass coverage, but Nick, when Nick was talking about Nakobe, mentioned his football IQ. That's half the battle when it comes to pass coverage as a linebacker, because you're not going to match up from a athleticism standpoint ever. That's the whole point.
Right, exactly.
Why people try to match up, great backs on linebackers all the time, and that's because they're better athletes. So you're never going to match up from that standpoint. But if you know if you have a high football IQ, if you know where you're supposed to be in coverage, you make it a lot more difficult for the quarterback. And Nakobe's a high IQ player, man, and that's the first thing Nick brought up. And not that Oren's a veteran, but I think you've seen him, in pass coverage, and there's it's a pretty big downgrade from that perspective. And if you go back to the Super Bowl, when you saw the difference between Dre Greenlaw and Oren Burks, I think you saw pretty significant. And, Oren's a very good third linebacker, but, he's a very good third linebacker is how I describe him as a player. Yeah. I don't think it's going to hurt you that much against the Rams, but I think the potential is to be a big issue down the road against the Detroits of the world, or even in a potential Super Bowl matchup, Baltimore, Kansas City, even Buffalo. So it's going to hurt, but I mean, all these teams have injuries. The Eagles have been healthier than just about anybody else. Got to persevere through these things. You can't replace them, but you got to persevere.
Yep, no doubt about it. John, a necessary evil in this conversation is, many Eagles fans, maybe people who don't tune in to Birds 365, but for the people who will watch this after the fact, for the people who are here right now, Oren Burks will be the guy, right? It will not be Jeremiah Trotter Jr. People have speculated that on X. People have been tweeting at me. Will it be Trotter Jr.? It will not be Trotter Jr. I think that's the right move. I don't think this is the time to get a rookie NFL reps. Just get the guy out there with experience. Remember, Oren Burks did play in the Super Bowl last year when Dre Greenlaw went down with that injury. So Oren Burks has playoff experience, Super Bowl experience. So it will be Oren Burks, correct?
Yeah, it will be Oren to start. But you go back to week 17 against Dallas. Nakobe was out with an abdomen injury. You saw what they're going to do. Oren Burks started the game, did not play well. Now, nobody remembers because it was 41-7, but he did not play well early. And they did insert Trotter for a series. And then they went back to Burks, and Burks settled down and played, most of the game. I'm trying to look it up as I'm speaking. So Burks got that was a blowout game. So he ended up with the most snaps on the team, actually, 51. They sat all their starters because they were leaving. Trotter got 23 snaps. So you might see a rotational, especially if he's playing poorly.
Right.
He's going to start. If he plays poorly, they'll give Trotter a chance. But Oren Burks is the plan and the hope that he plays well. And is
there certain fits where Oren Burks thrives more and where Trotter might be a better look? Like what would those fits look like, or the schemes or whatever?
Well, I mean, Trotter's got a bigger upside as a player, but obviously very young. And if you look at week 18 where Burks started and played the whole game and had, I don't know, 17 tackles, maybe. Not a bad player. But yeah, he's, Vickers will be very cognizant of if he's playing poorly. And if he is, Trotter will get a chance, but the hope is that he holds down the fort well enough. And you need depth. So, I mean, all of a sudden he becomes Oren Burks. So, and linebacker 3, so to speak. And Dallas Gant will probably get elevated from the practice squad. It's a big injury. Nakobe was having a great year. Started poorly early in the season, and then just kept getting better and better. And by the end of it, was tremendously consistent. And Ballin was so good. I think people kind of overlooked how good Nakobe was a little bit.
Yeah.
So
you expect the start of his 2025 season to be in jeopardy?
Yes. I would be shocked if he's back for week 1.
Yeah, January 12th. He sustained the injury. I don't know when he's getting an operation on it, or if he needs one, or what I'm sure he does need one towards patellar tendon. But we will keep you more updated on that. John, how do you make up for a loss like that? Now that Nakobe Dean is out, Oren Burks will be in. A couple things come to mind for me. You go maybe 5-man fronts on early downs to help the run, maybe dropping dime a little bit, I don't passing downs. I don't know. What do you see for how Vic Fangio could try and make up for the loss of Nakobe Dean this week?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because Vic, one thing about Vic is he will roll out different looks. Now, this is not a team where it's going to roll out the 6-man front. I don't think that's only against really good, dominant rushing teams that he's trying to slow down. You'll always see 5-man front, and how much depends on, a couple things. One, again, to a lesser degree, how effective are you stopping the run early in the game? But he wants 2 linebackers on the field. Now, if Oren Burks is playing poorly and Trotter's playing poorly, then you got to start thinking about big nickel and that kind of stuff. But, it doesn't look like he trusts Sidney Brown at this point. A little bit too much, freelancing, a little bit too much, little too undisciplined. I don't think he's got that kind of confidence in Tristan McCullum. Avonte Maddox obviously has not had a good year. So I think it's, people are going to overanalyze, paralysis by overanalysis, because that's what they do this time of year. It's going to be Oren Burks.
We'll see how it plays out. It's a big injury here for the Eagles defense to sustain. Excuse me, with Nakobe Dean. So we will see how it all goes. I want to thank everybody for being here this morning. John, we got a big crowd in here already. Everybody's jacked up for the playoffs. We appreciate all of you guys flexing and stepping. James Jones, Daz is in here, Big Trag, Brandon Howard. What's going on, everybody? We appreciate all the support. As always, don't forget to hit that like button for us if you can. And we'll get to a couple super chats as well here before we move on. We will have Chris Franklin, the great Chris Franklin, will join us in hour number 2. So looking forward to doing that. We got a viewer of the day, John. I'm dubbing our viewer of the day very early today. All right. So I love you all, but we got our viewer of the day. Sasha became a member here. Sasha Ramani. Sasha, thanks for becoming a member. And then he or she drops a $20 super chat and says, Johnny Mack for president. Been listening to you since 2016 from the ESPN channel. That's the last time I also watched the national media.
Nice.
That's a loyal viewer right there, Johnny Mack. So that's our viewer of the day.
I like it. I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Good stuff there, Sasha. Jeff Bone, the Bonehead, checks in. Would you sign Quan Alexander to help at linebacker?
No. First of all, nobody's going to play. Well, the design. So don't think about somebody coming off the street. If you're taking somebody off the street on January 14th and you're trying to play him in a game, you're in bad shape. So, the Eagles have, again, if Oren doesn't play well, they'll try Trotter. If they don't play well, honestly, they're going to be out of the playoffs. You're not bringing somebody in. This happened to Vic last year in Miami by necessity. He lost all his edge rushers. He lost Jalen Phillips. He lost Andrew Van Ginkel. He lost a third one, I forget. And he had to bring in guys literally off the street to play in the playoff game. And they got destroyed, predictably. So you don't want anybody off the street to sign to play. They're very light because, remember, Ben Van Sumeren is out and it has been out for a while. They might have to sign a body for the practice squad just in case. And it might be a veteran, but nobody to play is how I would describe it. The guys who are going to play are, Oren Burks, hopefully, and that's it. And if Oren shits the bed, then Trot will get an opportunity.
There you go. Good stuff there. Jeff Bone, the Bonehead. Thank you, brother. Brian Garner checks in. Brian, thank you, man. $20 super chat here. He says, John, you were right. Lions game broke the Vikings. Was the Eagles passing game bad because of limited game planning time? Jalen didn't get cleared until late. Dan Orlovsky showed about 7 plays where no one was
Yeah, I
open.
talked about Dan. Dan's a charlatan. I hate to put it that way. I mean, what is he doing? You know, one week Jalen Hurts is the problem. The next week he's dependent. Does anybody notice this? I don't know. You know, maybe because
Well, don't you see, John, how people eat it up?
Yeah, well, that's the point.
I mean, I must have been tagged in that video by people, and I'm no big fish. I mean, people tagged me in that thing 50 times.
I'm like, specifically because the Eagles complain to me about what the fuck is Dan doing, and I'm like, I don't know what it. I'm disappointed because he knows a lot about football. I'm not trying to he's phenomenal typically, but I mean, I don't know. I don't know. You'd have to ask him. But I mean, guys were open in those clips, and he knows it. And as I pointed out to, Ryan Fitzpatrick, and everybody shits on Ryan Fitzpatrick. I guarantee you this: Ryan Fitzpatrick was a hell of a lot better quarterback in the NFL than freaking Dan Orlovsky. So
yeah, and I don't even think that's all that important. I think
either do I. But
I think Ryan Fitzpatrick is a smart dude, man. He's not my favorite guy, but he is a smart guy.
Well, yeah, he went to Harvard. He's an Ivy League guy.
Yeah,
but
and
anyway,
John, how many passing yards does he have in his career?
Like 40,000.
Yeah,
well, that's what I'm saying. That's why I bring it up. I'm like, Eagles fans are shitting on Ryan Fitzpatrick because he's pointing out the obvious, because he's, God forbid it looks bad on Jalen Hurts. And they're saying what a terrible quarterback. And they're defending Dan Orlovsky, who's, not a good NFL quarterback, never a starting NFL quarterback like Ryan Fitzpatrick, and has been shitting on Jalen Hurts all year. Like, do people forget? I don't know. It's frustrating to me, but guys were open. I don't know what the fuck Dan was talking about. This is the NFL. Open in the NFL isn't open in the Big 12, as you pointed out, Zander. We're not talking about 5 yards of separation. So yeah, but no, as far as the Eagles' limited game, no, absolutely not. The Eagles are what they are at this point. They have shifted gears and built this team on the foundation of their defense and Saquon Barkley. And the unintended consequence to that, I hate to break it to people, is that the passing game isn't that good.
Right.
Should it be better? Yes. With the talent they have, no question about it. It should be better. But this nonsense of, oh, Nick Sirianni took over the offense. It's a high school offense. I see that all the time. It's the least they don't scheme anybody. Come on. You don't have to make every excuse in the book for the quarterback holding on to the foot. You just saw a quarterback I just brought up. And by the way, the 33rd team updated the thing. As I said, he was 560, whatever, of what. It was like 1567 of 1570 over any quarterback of the. If you hold on to the football, you are bad things are going to happen. Get it out on time. The Eagles have a quarterback who doesn't get the football out on time.
John,
and part of that, sorry, Zander, part of that is the overcorrection on ball security, which is very important. And the Eagles have, and they might be right. The Eagles think, and they might be right. If they don't turn the football over, they're going to win. Period.
So you think part of the way Jalen's playing with not forcing the ball is being coached into him right now?
Yep.
Yeah.
100%, 150%. They are risk averse right now. Risk averse.
It's working, man. I mean, they just won a playoff game by double digits here.
Yeah, and sometimes it's ugly and non-aesthetic, but as you point out, they won the game by double digits. They were, I was at the game. I never felt they were in danger. Did it look pretty? No, but it was effective.
I was waiting for Jordan Love in that game to not turn into a pumpkin and take advantage of the Eagles letting them hang around, but he was a pumpkin too in that game. John,
well, when you're playing behind, When you're playing from behind, every quarterback looks a lot worse. Every single.
We were talking about all week how he sometimes is better from behind because it forces him to throw the ball, but he was not effective at doing it.
Well, I think the Packers sometimes, but you're never better as a quarterback when you're playing behind. Never, literally never. You always want to play from the lead.
Yeah,
always.
It's funny. Yeah, it's funny, John. When you were obviously at the game on Sunday, so you don't hear. I assume you don't hear the full TV broadcast, but Tom Brady was obviously the color analyst on the game. And something you just said, what Tom commented on, he's like, boy, 6.7 seconds for the touchdown throw. That was 3 passes for me in the NFL. I got that thing out like a hot potato every single time. And I thought that was an interesting comment there from one of the
Well, that's the difference between the Eagles' offensive line. I got a kick out of it because, I was talking to Jordan Mailata after the game, Lane. The Eagles' offensive line is so ridiculous. Like they're talking about after the game how leaky they were. And I'm looking at them. I'm like, really? They have such a high standard. And then you see these other shitty offensive lines like last night. And you're like, oof. I mean, as I said, MVP of the Eagles, you can make a case for a lot of people. 99% of you are going to say Saquon Barkley. You said Howie Roseman. A lot of people say Howie.
I'm going Howie. I'm sticking with Howie.
A lot of people go Howie Roseman for building this roster. A lot of people go Zach Bond for having a defensive player of the year type situation. A lot of people go Vic Fangio for turning around this defense from one of the worst in the NFL to one of the best in 1 year, 1 calendar year. Offensive line, man, is the MVP of this team. And
here's my top 3. Ready?
I don't think second place is close.
I
don't think second place is close.
Eagles MVPs. Howie Roseman, offensive line, Vic Fangio. There's my top 3. There's my top 3 MVPs. Sorry, Saquon, you're going 4 for me.
Yeah, I mean, with Howie, and I love Howie, but people go overboard, and I go, remember what Howie's great as contingencies. If Howie had
the only thing I'll say, dude, is how many teams in the league could be 15-3 and not really be in a position where they're asking their quarterback to do much. Again, I'm not knocking Jalen Hurts. I'm just saying this is not 22. Jalen Hurts was the engine. He was the reason they went to the Super Bowl. He made everything work. He was a serious threat in all elements of the offensive game, and he was what the team revolved around. 2024 Hurts is a lot different. They're asking him to be a completely different guy.
Yeah, but that has nothing to do with Howie Roseman. Literally nothing. Literally nothing to do. That's all the coaching staff taking a step back and saying, "All right, this is the group we have. This was not the plan." Is what I'm trying.
Yeah, but you still have to build. You still got to get the horses.
Yeah, but that's not how we built this roster. That's what I'm saying. I'm not giving him credit for something he didn't do.
So you're saying this was not his intention?
No.
All right. Yeah.
Hell no. There's a bunch of shit. And by the way, but people go too far, and I feel I have to correct it. Like, I used to get shit on for saying Howie was a top 5 GM, as you know.
Yes, you did. I remember posting out the video and getting hate comments.
Yeah. Oh, I got shit on. So I have so much hate mail for that. But nobody ever apologizes. But that's my cross to bear.
Yeah, the same people said you hate mail. The same people tweeting out every other day how much they love Howie Roseman.
But yeah, exactly. But now that people go to this overboard, and I'm not picking on you, but that was not the intent. The intent of this team obviously was to evolve the offense. That's why they brought in Kellen Moore. This whole plan, even the signings are contingencies. When people write the book on this team, and who knows, if I ever get some time, maybe I'll write a book.
You should write a book.
They wanted DeAndre Swift back. That was plan A. DeAndre wanted out because he didn't like the way he was used as a pass catcher. So for people that don't know that was plan A at running back, and then he left. And they shipped it and obviously got to Saquon Barkley. This is what Howie's great at with contingencies. They were going to draft Platano in the first round. The contingency, Pittsburgh took him at 20, and Andy Waddle hoodwinking his old boss. But, there's Howie. He's drafting Quinyon Mitchell at 22, turns into a defensive rookie of the year candidate, probably going to be second to Jared Verse. And then he signs Mekhi Becton. That's what Howie's great at. These other GMs fall apart when their plans, because you never get the guy. There's 31 other teams you're competing against for draft picks, free agents. You never get. They wanted Xavier McKinney. That was their top option at safety. They get, CJ Gardner-Johnson. Contingency. He's great at contingencies. But that's complete revisionist history to say he built this roster for this reason. This offense looks nothing like what he thought this offense was going to look like. That is all the coaching staff. So Nick Sirianni deserves the credit for that.
So who are your top three MVPs here? You got O-line 1.
O-line, Vic 2, Saquon 3.
Nice. There you go. Good list there from Johnny Mack for the Eagles MVPs. Good opening segment here. Again, appreciate everybody in here. We got a big crowd in here. We appreciate each and every one of you guys for watching the show. We are in the meat and potatoes. We are into this playoff run now. There's 8 teams left, John. Listen to this stat. 7 of the 8 quarterbacks in the NFL divisional round of the playoffs are mobile quarterbacks. The new prototypical NFL QB is mobile. That's from Robert Griffin III, obviously one of the great mobile quarterbacks for a short time, but he was one of the great ones when he did it. That's pretty crazy to think about, man. You got Lamar Jackson. No, I don't think he has Matthew Stafford as mobile. I don't believe Matthew Stafford.
I don't think. Well, come on, RG3.
Yeah, but Lamar, Allen, Mahomes, Hurts, Jaden Daniels, and CJ Stroud. I think those 6 are pretty good. Yeah, come on. He's got Matthew Stafford on the mobile list.
Dude.
That's crazy. Jared Goff is not on the mobile list, obviously.
He's great manipulating the pocket, if that's what he's describing. But then every quarterback, Peyton Manning's a mobile quarterback by that definition.
Right.
And he's not. So, yeah, that's kind of bullshit. But no, look, mobile quarterbacks are much more difficult to deal with than stationary pocket guys, unless you get to that Peyton Manning-like level of being able to, manipulate things at the line of scrimmage. We've seen it. I mean, when the Ravens particularly are cooking, they look unstoppable. They look unstoppable.
You know why I can't buy into the Ravens right now?
Because Lamar shit the bed in the playoffs.
No, because he shit the bed versus the Eagles. The Eagles made him into a pedestrian quarterback. So, I don't know. Maybe that's just a bias.
Just like I talked about one play scouting. Don't get caught up in one game.
No, nobody's perfect. But to be completely honest, I didn't watch. I watched a lot of Lions games this year. I watched a lot of NFC games. I didn't watch every Ravens game. I might have watched 4 or 5 Ravens games this year. The worst game I saw him play was versus the Eagles. So if Vic Fangio is able to do that once with this defense, I have a feeling I like that matchup. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying he's going to drop another stinker, but not a Sam Darnold level stinker coming. But I just feel.
Oh, well, he's had some not that level. Well, that level, nobody's going to reach that level.
Yeah, right. As you pointed out with the
stats. He's had some bad playoff games, so I get why people don't believe in the Ravens. But that's why I said when they're cooking, they look unstoppable. To a certain degree, the Eagles do too, because of the quarterback and the running back dynamic. Just hasn't been as consistent as the Ravens over the season. So it's always more difficult if you have a high-level functioning mobile quarterback. It's almost like, what do you do? And then you add in Derrick Henry. It's like, what do you do? You can sell out to stop Derrick Henry, and then he's going to pull the football and go for 50 himself. But, hopefully they get knocked off.
No doubt about it. John, we're going to get to our first commercial break here. Let me make sure I got all our super chats, though. Oh, no, we got a couple more super chats. Let's get to these first. Again, thanks, everybody, for being here. Hit that like button for us. Divisional round, Eagles-Rams, 3 p.m. Sunday. Buckle in, everybody. I like the matchup. Brian Garner says, to be honest, I don't like Dan, and I know Jalen doesn't make tight window throws at all. I think he's talking about Dan Orlovsky, following up from his earlier chat there, Johnny Mac.
I like Dan a lot. I just don't, I do know. I think I know. I shouldn't say I do know. You'd have to ask him, but there's a bit. I think he's coached to do things a certain way to create engagement. Yeah, that's my opinion. Not saying it's true. That's my opinion. Jalen, yeah, he's not an anticipatory thrower. Like when we talk about NFL being open in the NFL, it's not the Big 12. It's not Oklahoma. It's not Alabama, where you have 4 yards of separation. Generally, you're not going to get that in the NFL. Occasionally, but not consistently. And usually when you do get it, it's blown coverage. Even when you see some of those replays and you see some of the zone coverage, and you saw it last night with Stafford, you say, well, that guy's wide open in the middle of the field. But then they replay it, and you see an arm, 3 inches away from the football, underneath or
did you see that throw?
Yeah. Well, there were a bunch of big-time throws.
I know, but that one throw where he threaded it over the defender that was cutting across the middle of the field, oh, my God, that was money, man.
That's what I'm saying, but that's how close it is, for somebody getting a hand on the football, even when it looks bad. I mean, in zone coverage. NFL players are really good, and you're not going to get massive separation on a consistent basis. So, a lot of it is throwing guys open. A lot of it is anticipatory throws. A lot of it is getting the ball out on time. Before the game, when they showed the Detroit, if anybody was watching the game last night, they showed all the missed throws Sam Darnold had in the red zone against the Lions. And there was one to Addison where he just broke off open, touchdown, bang, boom. If the ball comes out on time, didn't throw it. All of a sudden, the play breaks down, nothing happening. So much of it is those 3 things: throwing guys open, anticipatory throws, timing throws, and getting the football out on time.
Good stuff there, Johnny Mac. Let's keep rolling on a couple more super chats. Big thanks to everybody for all the support today. We'll talk to Chris Franklin of NJ.com in hour number 2, so looking forward to talking to Chris. Brian Garner checks in again. Brian, thanks for all your support today, brother. 3 big supers from you. We appreciate it. He says, Vic has done a phenomenal job, but with all those injuries, any thought Aaron Glenn receiving coordinator assistant of the year? I think that's fair.
No, I think,
I don't think he's going to win it, but I think it's fair to say that.
I think, it's fair to put him in the conversation. I mean, he's not even going to in on his own team because, Ben Johnson is obviously the hot guy, the hot coaching candidate, the number 1 coaching candidate, and he's probably going to win it. And there is an assistant coach of the year award from the AP that will be announced at NFL Honors before the Super Bowl. My guess is that Ben Johnson will win it. If it were up to me, Vic Fangio would win it. But I have no problem saying Aaron Glenn should be in the conversation. He's done a great job with all the injuries, as you mentioned. But I think Vic is done, and part of it's bias. I like him. I'm here. I get to see him every day. But even we always talk about Coach of the Year. And even though, because it's a regular season award, Kevin O'Connell's going to win the award, which is not the time to say it, but he's going to win it because of the great regular season. It's and people will shit on that, but it's a regular season award. Understand that. We don't vote. We didn't watch that game. The votes are already in.
Right.
That's not, he shit the bed. But he deserves the award for what the award is. And that's what that award has become. I've explained. Andy Reid's never in contention because Andy Reid's supposed to win. Dan Campbell's not going to win because he was supposed to win a lot of games this year. Kevin O'Connell was not. That's why he's going to win the award. If they hold that same standard to the Assistant Coach of the Year award, which I don't think they will because I think Ben Johnson will win, then Vic should win it. The Eagles' defense was atrocious last year. We all looked at that linebacker room and said, this is the worst linebacker room in the NFL back in the spring. Everybody. And he has turned that group around, turned Zach Bond. Zach Bond, did you see the Howie Roseman clip on Kelsey?
On the night show?
Yeah. Now, they're trying to have Bond. They're joking around, but he's like, fuck no, I didn't think Zach Bond would turn.
That was great. I think that's Howie at his best when he does stuff like that. He kind of tries to be a little funny, but I find him to be very funny because you can tell he's trying to be funny, and I just find it funny that Howie acts like that.
Yeah.
But I like.
Well,
Howie.
they usually don't land, but nobody. Nobody thought Zach Bond would turn into Zach Bond, including Zach Bond, because I've asked him the question.
Well, he doesn't say that to Howie unless he knows, unless he didn't expect it either. Like, I think him asking Howie that.
Well, he's joking when he was named to the Pro Bowl. He had a Pro Bowl incentive in his contract, and he left with his agent. He's like, what a waste of time this is. It's one of the true, and then you talk about the young defensive backs and the ability to teach the scheme. It's not the scheme, it's the teaching of the scheme. That's what people don't get.
Yeah. Done a great job this year. A couple more supers, then we'll get to our first commercial break. Brian Pumper checks in. Fellas, we better see a real QB come to the link on Sunday. Unfortunately, we're stuck with Tamagotchi Hurts. What? John,
I don't know.
What the fuck does Tamagotchi Hurts mean?
I don't know what that means, but Matthew Stafford is a big-time quarterback.
He is a real quarterback, no doubt.
Yeah.
He can play, man.
Again, potential future Hall of Fame quarterback. And if they make this run, if they upset the Eagles, and, they're not going to, but if they make one more run, he is going to the Hall of Fame. I mean, he is a big-time quarterback. And when do you hear Slay talking about him this week? Because he'll get asked the question. And AJ as well. I remember when they played the Rams out, I asked AJ, I'm like, it's like, man, that's what you want as a receiver. Matthew Stafford as a quarterback, which I looked at that and I said, I don't think he was.
It wasn't.
It wasn't a slight, because I was just talking about Matthew Stafford specifically, and he just gushed.
He is damn good, man. He can throw that ball, man. He is a good quarterback, no doubt. Brian Pumper again follows up. Brian, thank you for your support, brother. He says, I want to talk trash to the Rams, but I realized we had a QB who was enrolled in the privileged school of QBs who can't read good. Come on, Pump. I think you're being a little hard there, my guy.
Is that a Zoolander reference? I don't know.
Yeah, it might be.
Kids who can't read good. Look, unintended Jalen Hurts has played a lot better than this. If they played a different way, he'd probably be playing a lot better to a certain constituency that wants to see, numbers and stats and things like that. But the Eagles have made a conscious decision. If we don't turn the football over, we're not going to lose. And I've become extremely, extremely risk averse. And it's working, so it's hard to complain about it.
It's working. We'll see how it works against the next couple. Every game, the stakes get higher, so we will see what happens. I do like the Rams a lot for this match. And no, I like us playing the Rams, not the Rams in the game. I like the Eagles in the game by big.
I'm going under 255 for Saquon, but I'm going over 150.
Over 150?
Over 150.
Well, they are not a good run defense. I think they're like 23rd in the league in run defense. Yeah, and Saquon had 255, as you pointed out already.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Eagles' offensive line is going to beat the you-know-what out of that undersized defensive front.
We'll see how it goes. Appreciate everybody being in here. Don't forget to hit that like button. All right. We appreciate all of you guys in the chat today. We got a big crowd in here, Johnny Mac. Everybody's fired up for plus, man. We got 830 on YouTube and over 1,000 total watching on the show. So big thanks to everybody.
What about podcast listens? How we doing?
We're doing great on pod. The people, if you're listening on the podcast, let's give them a shout out. We don't talk to them enough. We appreciate you. We get about 1,000 a day, John, over there on podcast, which is really good for a podcast download. So daily show is crushing it. Good job, everybody. And we appreciate you guys make it happen, man. So we're just here, but we could be talking to nobody. We could be talking into a void. So thank you guys for making us not talk to a void. We appreciate that very much. Let's get to our commercial break. We'll have Chris Franklin coming up in hour number 2. Looking forward to doing that. Before I get to the break, let me tell you guys about the great people at BetUS. You can see the promo code I put on your screen. It's YouTube 150. Gives you 150% sign-up bonus on your very first deposit. And you get 125% on your second and third deposit, all up to $2,000. So deposit less and bet with more at BetUS. Go to betus.com.pa. That's betus.com.pa. Hit that like button, everybody, and we'll be back in 3 minutes on Birds 365.
Ignite your nights with